Hey, welcome to Scotch for Dummies.
Hey guys, 4 guys on a Scotch journey or maybe a bourbon journey.
Say what?
To help you with your next purchase.
Whiskey purchase.
Whiskey
purchase.
So this isn't Scotch.
This is not
It is
Scotch.
not Scotch. We are talking a bottle of bourbon today. So this particular bottle,
Look at him.
he's
shake and
making that
shudder.
face, but he bought a bottle too. So don't let him give you any guff. So we're reviewing Rowan's Creek today. So this would be a semi-boutique bourbon whiskey from the Willett family. It is named after the creek that actually runs through the property. That's their water source.
I'm learning something.
In Kentucky, hand bottled at 50.05%. So 100.1 ABV.
So hand bottled and hand poured. This is incredible.
Beat
I mean,
that.
this is like
Beat that. So it's got a little bit of heat to it. The mash bill is slightly variable. So, and it's a small batch production. So the batch number is back on the back there, Andrew. I don't know.
What
if
do
you
you
Yeah,
can,
this looks like 19-1. Yeah, so it's not a new bottle.
All right.
But if you look online, you can find these online. They're like $50 each, and the batch is gonna be a little different. But the batch we're going through today.
So we were taken to Willett Distillery by a friend of the show, Alan Ward, and he took us around to several distilleries that day. But he took us to Willett. We got to run through a tasting of their whole lineup, which was really cool. And I picked this bottle up that particular day. Now, I had it actually sitting on my shelf. I've had this before. I've had it on my bars at my some of my restaurants, and I enjoy Rowan's Creek and Noah's Mill. I think that they're pretty decent bourbons, but it is a small batch production, so you're not going to see it on every shelf.
Boy, this is a different, very different nose than we've had recently. So,
oh yeah, it is.
You got the oakiness in there. Is there rye in here?
I tried to look up the mash bill, and they said that it kind of varied a little bit from batch to batch, and then they're pouring barrels together for the small batch production.
It smells like there's
but
rye
I'm sure that there's probably at least some amount of rye.
Yeah, it smells like there's rye in there. So it's not a what? Well, 51%.
At least 51% corn.
Oh.
But my first nose, like I get the rye now that I've been smelling it a little bit, but my first nose was all like caramel and vanilla.
Yes.
And a little bit of oak. But
this is actually the nose on this is actually really well balanced. It's not over oaked at all.
No. You know what's interesting to me is nosing bourbon over the last couple months, having lost my sense of smell. I can pull notes from bourbons a lot better than Scotch. I think it's because the mash, the bill that they're made from, and it's all new oak. You know what I mean? And there's the smells and tastes that come out of bourbon. I didn't lose those receptors.
That is really weird.
Right, but
that's really interesting.
It's mind-boggling that I can actually smell. I mean, if you blindfolded me, put this in I would be like, "That's a bourbon."
See, that right there is how you get taken to the government facility so they can experiment on you, figure out why you can smell that but not Scotch, right? Give them the electrode again.
Yeah, right.
So what are you getting on this, Andrew?
So you're getting the spiciness of the rye. I'm getting the caramels. The palate definitely. I'm getting some rye on the flavor. So it's kind of it's almost a sour. It's like a sour grain. That's how I describe rye. It's probably not the right term. But
to me, I agree with you though. I like that description of rye.
Yeah.
If I'm going to tell you what rye smells like to me, that's pretty good.
Yeah. To me, it's more of a black licorice /
yes.
But it's got that like little bit of bitter tannin. But my first sip of this, on the front palate, it's all caramel and it goes down so smooth. And then when it hits your back palate, it expands and kind of fills your whole mouth with the flavor.
That's for sure.
Right?
So the initial palate, the sip, I mean, this is 50% ABV. There should be some punch to it. I don't get anything when it first hits my tongue. In front of my tongue, it's sweet, it's soft, it is smooth, a term. It's really soft and gentle with the sweetness, and then when it rolls back, and the alcohol pops off, and it does burn a little bit, and that's when I get the rye influence, and I lose a lot of the sweetness. I think. Let me let it finish.
I'll agree with you. I lose a lot of the sweetness, but the sweetness is so sweet up front. And even as you're like kind of rolling it around in your mouth, it still retains that sweetness. I start to get some of the rye influence coming out just a little bit more. Like you lose a little bit of that vanilla note to it. But then when you swallow it, that's when you get a lot of the oak and the tannic qualities. And the rye comes forward a little bit. Like you get some more of the different grain influences coming forward. I can still taste it.
That's what I was thinking. That's why,
like, the finish is long. It's got a lot going on, but none of it is like off-putting. It's very well balanced. It's 12-year-old whiskey.
oh wow.
So for
You gotta
bourbon,
be careful with that.
yeah, I mean, you can overdo it.
Yeah.
But for me, the interesting part about it for me is that it doesn't taste over oaked. Because sometimes as you get older bourbons, you're like, ooh, it's like drinking a tree. That's awesome. But this one, I mean, I don't get that. The vanillas and everything are still very forward. And it's very approachable.
Yeah. So that's why I wasn't saying anything, because as you were talking, I was letting that finish kind of roll through, and it really balances really well in that finish. You get a little bit of oak, you get a little bit of caramel. Yeah. And you get in the rye. I mean, it does a good job. You do a good job with this.
I will say with bourbons, it's nice because you do get a different mash bill. So single malt Scotch is single malt, you know.
All you got is a cask.
And so you've got some variables, whereas with bourbon, you know, the casking is going to be the same, but now you've got the mash bill can change up a little bit, and you can bring forward different flavor profiles by altering, you know, how much of each grain you put in. And so it's interesting to me, especially on, you know, to me on the mouthfeel and on the finish is where some of that kind of comes forward.
When you bring wheat, you bring wheat in, you bring
the
rye
big difference to me in the bourbon and the American whiskey side of things, right? So we've been in Scotch for so long. What makes the industries different is just what you just said. I mean, if you're stumbling into the bourbon world and you don't know anything about mash bills, you could have the same bottle that looks just like this lined up 4 times, you know, across the whole bar, and someone like me wouldn't know the difference and be like, I'll just take this one, right? And somebody who knows would be like, no, you don't want the 19-1. You want the -2.
Yeah.
You're like, that's the one. Well, what's the difference? So
that is crazy fun. Yeah.
The difference is they wanted the 19-1 and they tricked you into buying the -2 so they could get it.
See, now that's all my game. But interesting. So who wants to go on this? Who's ready?
So
I just put water on it.
What did you think of the water? I don't think it held the water well. I lost a lot of the sweetness.
Yeah, I lost the sweetness. It let me get to the finish a little bit faster, but it kind of tamed down the finish a little bit too. I liked it neat a lot. And to me, it had a lot of it's the kind of whiskey that you can pour in a glass and it's going to take you a half hour to finish because you can slowly sip it. The finish lingers. You don't need to keep going back to the glass to, you know, kind of refresh your palate or whatever, because it just all kind of hangs out there. With the water, I lost the sweetness up front on the front palate. And then the finish kind of shortened that up to, I mean, almost nothing really.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even put that much water on it.
See, I'm still getting the finish. The finish is long on this. I even with the water, so I lose some of the sweetness, but I'm starting to like a bourbon or this bourbon finish.
I think that I just need to let it sit for a little bit.
I think that's what's going on.
But I do get the rye coming forward a little bit more.
Absolutely.
On the finish.
There's a high rye.
So what would you score it?
So if I had to score this, and it's about $50 for the bottle.
I don't know.
Give or take.
Okay.
I mean, it's a pretty solid bottle for $50 if you can find it for $50. We'll
find it online.
We'll make the caveat for the bourbon market, but if you can get that for $50, I mean, it's a higher ABV. I don't have to pour 4 glasses to get through my evening. It's great neat, so I can just sit there, pour it, and sip on it for a long time. I really enjoyed everything about it from the initial sip all the way through to the long finish. I think you get your money's worth out of it. I'd give it a 3.5.
Really?
Okay. Yep.
3.5.
So this is weird for me because the pricing for bourbon versus Scotch is completely different. I don't know. I haven't calibrated myself on that, so I don't know exactly how much influence that has. $50 for a Scotch would be fantastic. For a bourbon, I think it's kind of high, from what I understand. So this bourbon itself is. I really enjoy this. It has enough spice, it has enough sweetness, it has enough wood to really balance everything out, and I enjoy that.
I'm going to back up
Yeah.
just quick. I think I'm going to go with a 3, just because the water didn't hold quite as well as I would have liked.
Oh,
So
down
the more I
goes
think about it,
Fraser.
I'm like,
Totally
you know
understand
what? I'm going to back it up just a little bit. If it would have held the water, it would have been a 3.5. But I think a 3 is probably
Down
a more
goes
solid
Fraser.
number for it.
And
So, sorry.
that number makes more sense to me. I would not have given this a 3.5. It seems that's, but again, I don't know excellent bourbon versus average bourbon. So that's where I'm going to learn as my palate grows on with bourbons what I really enjoy. And I enjoy this bottle. Now I did have a learning experience with Mike when Mike was on our show years ago. We were live in my basement and he brought over a really nice rye and an inexpensive rye, and we compared them, and it was like night and day difference. This is a very flavorful, very tasty whiskey. Is it a 3? I can't fault it for much, quite honestly. So probably a 2.5 or 3 is in the right range. I'm going to go conservative and go 2.5
Because that's Andrew.
because it's expensive for bourbon.
Because it's
Sure
expensive
it is.
for you, period.
Sure it is.
$50 is going a long
Dude,
way.
that's
for
not
Andrew.
expensive. So $50. I'm going to go with 2.5 because this is definitely something worth considering on your bar. I would continue to drink this if I had it on my bar. I would even consider replacing it because it's a really nice whiskey to drink.
Did you?
I agree with you on the water notes, and that's what I would have dinged it on. Honestly, I enjoyed the flavor, what I can get of the flavor. Neat. I think it drank a little easier and a little better with the water, and I like that. But I'm not willing to sacrifice for that, losing what I was getting out of the neat, which is fine. You know, I mean, after the first 2 sips anyway, your palate gets adjusted to that 100.1, and you know that doesn't burn you anymore. But I think that it just had a lot more neat. And I wish I could have got more. Now I can get the sweetness. Boy, I got a lot of that. I can get into a little bit of that corn and the oakiness is in there. But aside from that, I did smell a little bit of what you were describing as rye, but I don't know the difference in that. I mean, I don't know anything about rye anyway.
So, I mean, I'm glad you got that much out
Right.
of it. So
I'm
that's
getting
great.
more out of, and this isn't the first bourbon I've had in the last 3 months since I lost my smell. And I'm like, I sniffed one, and I'm like, man, why can I smell this one? And I can't smell what I
That
want.
is so weird.
But it is what it is. So we got a 2.5 and a 3.
Yep. So 2.75.
2.75.
2.75 from 50% of the dummies.
That seems right.
So that seems like.
And Mark gives it a sweet.
And I get, sweet for me. No, check it out. I don't know if you guys know anything about Rowan's Creek. If you do, leave us some comments, because this is a journey for us too, and we're going to start wading into.
Yeah, we'll need to change
bourbon.
these shirts to bourbon for dummies.
I don't know if I'm going that far.
We'll find out.
All right, I'm willing to. But anyway, hey, check us out on Sunday Lives. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe, like, notification, all that good stuff.
We appreciate it. Cheers. Cheers, guys.